Okay. So look what we got going on here. So we're at Iowa for next week, November 8th. Then we got Minnesota in Eugene, which is good, but also Oregon has not played well at home versus on the road. And then we have USC at home, which is, again, good, but we haven't played well at home. And USC, let me check out USC. I'm pretty sure they've only lost one game. Yeah, fight on. Let's see. Sports, football. There we go. Okay. What is... Yeah, 11 times national champions and all that. Full schedule. Here we go. Yes. Okay, so they are 6-2, but 4-1 in conference. They very much have. They're very much still in the running to at least somewhat be in the running. At wow, they barely beat Nebraska. They ended up winning over after all. Okay, but at one loss in the conference, it's not completely out of the question as it stands right now that they would be in talks about the conference, right? They could win out, beat who they need to beat, who they got left. See, Northwestern, Iowa, Oregon, UCLA. Very possible for them to win out. And depending on what happens with Ohio State and Indiana, very possible that they could find themselves in the Big Ten championship in some capacity, win it, and go to the playoffs. Minnesota, I believe, won today, so I can't remember if... Let's see, if they have one loss, two losses. Let's see, teams, football. Football, let's go. Come on. Okay, 2 conference losses, 6-3 overall. So they're not necessarily in the running for anything with any sort of consequence. They're bowl eligible, but largely they have nothing to lose, and they would have enough. They have not enough to lose that they could play spoiler to Oregon. They are a solid team. I'll just put it that way. They're not a bad team, and it's a Friday game apparently, which is super fun. So, going through this, though. No Iowa ultimate trap game as it stands right now. Ultimate trap game. And I'm not sure what their record is. Let's take a look here just really quick. Again, I'm not trying to record count, but this is sort of just informs the team's trajectory and stuff. So, okay, 6-2, 4-1 in conference. So, unlikely. They are good enough to have that record in the conference and overall. They're probably not going to go to the conference championship, but if they were to win out, they would be going 10-2, which means they would be in conversation for the playoff. Minnesota's out of the playoff, but they're being successful to the point where they're good enough to be spoiler. USC, again, has a chance at the playoff. 6-2. 4-1 in conference. They have a long shot, but a shot to be in the conference championship. And for sure make the playoffs. Save what happens to Ohio State and Indiana. And then, of course, we have the Fuskies. I believe, obviously, as it stands right now, this might be a playoff implication game. But let's just take a look at their record and so on. Montlake. Come on. Schedule. Okay. Your website is horrible, but that makes sense because you're Washington. Okay, they are 6-2. 3-2 in conference. They're not making a conference championship. But if they were to win out, that could be a question of whether or not to go to the playoffs. They'd be in the conversation. And their schedule, let's see, November, let's see. They had a bye week as well. They play Wisconsin. Maybe. Then they play Purdue, UCLA, and then Oregon. They literally could win all three of these games, and playing Oregon would be a playoff elimination game, especially if Oregon drops one of their games to any of these teams. And of course, Washington would love nothing more than to be the spoilers, to beat their rival in Oregon the last game of the regular season and knock them out of the playoffs. So all these teams, every team that they're playing right now, save with Minnesota, there are playoff implications for these games. So the margin of error in terms of losing one of these games is very, very, very slim, if not a complete winning out of the month of November for Oregon to make the playoffs, if that is a thing. You have Iowa that could make the playoffs if they win out. So they have an extra reason to beat Oregon next week. Minnesota doesn't have any playoff contention to lose, but they could play a spoiler where the next two games are USC and Washington. And the next two games, USC and Washington, could be whoever wins goes to the playoff. And whoever loses is out. Because here's the thing. With the way that the rest of the season is looking right now in terms of placement in the Big Ten Conference, Oregon is probably likely boxed out of winning the conference to get into the playoff. Even if they have 3 losses or whatever, 3-4 losses. It's not one of those things like Seattle back in the day going 7-9, but they win the division so they go to the playoffs. This situation is not happening because the two teams in front of them are Ohio State and Indiana. And it is going to be very, very, very difficult to have both those teams get 2 losses. 1 at least, but 2 for sure, to knock them out of Big Ten championship contention to where Oregon is playing for the Big Ten championship. So they can't rely on dropping a game or two and still ending up in the conference championship, winning the conference championship and getting in the playoff that way. They don't have the safety net of winning the conference to get in. They're going to basically have to win out to get in. And now the schedule is sort of backlogged because we see how Washington is now. We see how USC is now. And then you have the trap game in Iowa and Minnesota being not a bad team. If you lose, let's say this. If you lose to Iowa or Minnesota, you then have to win against USC and Washington. And those are two teams you do not want to have to win against. Which then makes it you have to win out the rest of the season scenario to get to the playoff. So we will see how it goes. We could have an epic collapse of Indiana and then meet Ohio State in the Big Ten championship and pull off a miracle against Ohio State and get in that way. I'm not going to try to bank on that and hope that's the scenario. That's just what I'm going to say to that. But Oregon, once again, has pinned themselves into a situation where dropping a game ruins the season. and our margin of error is less. Unlike Miami today that lost their second or third game, got knocked out. They were still in it. You know what I mean? Back in the days of the Pac-12, the last year of the Pac-12, Oregon still could have gotten the playoffs if they beat Washington in the championship game, even though they dropped one to them earlier. And I believe that same year was the year that they also lost to Georgia. So the margin of error ends up right now being much, much slimmer for Oregon right now, where it's must win. Now you got a young team, and you got a quarterback that has, of last week, officially started a full college season in his career. People forget that. Everyone was talking about Dante Moore going to the pros after this year, which if he had a smashing year, sure, by all means, justifiably enough. But they forget before the season started, he's only started 5 games. He's still largely just as young as some of these freshmen, sophomores that are playing right now. He would greatly benefit from another year at Oregon, for sure. For sure. And he should stay. And I trust that he's a smart and mature enough person, considering his previous actions. He's a very smart, mature guy. He's probably going to do that. So, but also here's the thing too. So, again, the objective of every season is just get into the playoff. Just get there. Then try to take care of the rest once you get there. Find yourself in a hot streak once you get there. That is the objective of the team this year for sure. Because it's not expected. We're definitely not going to be a top seed like last year. We're not going to go undefeated like last year. The objective for the team this year was just get in and see what you can do. And I understand there's the fans out there, the Duck fans out there that expects a natty run every year. And then they get ultra disappointed when it doesn't happen. And of course you have the Oregon haters that are trolling us this year by saying there's always next year, making those jokes and things like that. But here's the thing. Those people making those jokes are saying that because they think that we think, oh, we're going to win the national championship this year. This is our year. And then something happens where we say, oh, next year. No. For any Oregon fan that's not just trying to get a rise out of the rival fans and the Oregon fans at the same time that are rational, that wasn't the mission this year. This wasn't a national championship run this year. Now, if you do something like that, no one's going to say no to that, obviously. But the objective of this year was not a national championship run, say like a Penn State does or did this year. We were not in the same situation as Penn State this year. We're too young for that. And it's just unfortunate because you have Ohio State right now that is pretty young too. It's a pretty fresh roster right now. And they're playing like they're playing. So it's like, why can't Oregon be like that? You know what I mean? Type of thing. I think obviously all roads lead through Ohio State right now. For sure. I think if Ohio State and Indiana play, Ohio State's winning. They are the epitome of reloading, not rebuilding. They totally reloaded. Most so with Matt Patricia at defensive coordinator after getting rid of Jim Knowles. It's like us getting Lanning after Cristobal left. That's Ohio State and getting Matt Patricia after Jim Knowles left. And so The expectation, though, for Oregon this year was just getting good playing time, development, learning experience for the young guys. And see what you can do if you make the playoff. That was the expectation for most normal fans this year. Obviously, we want to see miracles happen, but just looking at the likely result of how things will go, that was the best that you were looking for. Make the playoff, maybe finally get a playoff win, keep the ball rolling as a young team, and keep the momentum going, steps forward as a program. That's the hope that you're looking for this year. And you got to win out now at this point. You're in trouble. And not necessarily in a bad way. I'm just saying every game from here on out is way more important than even last year in November. Because now it's win out and go to the playoffs, and win out, and the winning out has got to be against rivals outside of the trap game. So Oregon's got a bit of an uphill battle this month. Every game is going to be an issue, for sure. Are they capable? I definitely think so. They just got to execute on that capability. It would bite extra hard that once again Washington would keep us out of the playoffs type of thing, right? It's show up or show out. It's show up and show out, put up or shut up time for Oregon